In some of the Psalms, the spirit of hatred which strikes us in the face is like the heat from a furnace mouth. At the outset I felt sure, and I feel sure still, that we must not either try to explain them away or to yield for one moment to the idea that, because it comes in the Bible, all this vindictive hatred must somehow be good and pious. We must face both facts squarely. The hatred is there, festering, gloating, undisguised. And also we should be wicked if we in any way condoned or approved it, or, worse still, used it to justify similar passions in ourselves. For we can still see, in the worst of their maledictions, how these old poets were, in a sense, near to God. Though hideously distorted by the human instrument, something of the divine voice can be heard in these passages. Against all this, the ferocious parts of the Psalms serve as a reminder that there is in the world such a thing as wickedness, and that it, if not its perpetrators, is hateful to God. In that way, however dangerous the human distortion may be, his word sounds through these passages too. But can we, besides learning from these terrible Psalms, also use them in our devotional life? I believe we can. In some of the Psalms, the spirit of hatred which strikes us in the face is like the heat from a furnace mouth. In others, the same spirit ceases to be frightful only by becoming, to a modern mind, almost comic in its naivety. Examples of the first can be found all over the Psalter, but perhaps the worst is in 109. The poet prays that an ungodly man may rule over his enemy, and that Satan may stand at his right hand. Verse 5. Even more devilish in one verse is the otherwise beautiful Psalm 137, where a blessing is pronounced on anyone who will snatch up a Babylonian baby and beat its brains out against the pavement. Verse 9. And we get the refinement of malice in Psalm 69, verse 23, "Let their table be made a snare to take themselves withal, and let the things that should have been for their wealth be unto them an occasion of falling." The examples which, in me at any rate, can hardly fail to produce a smile, may occur most disquietingly in psalms we love. Psalm 143, after proceeding for 11 verses in a strain that brings tears to the eyes, adds in the 12th, almost like an afterthought, "And of thy goodness slay mine enemies." Even more naively, almost childishly, Psalm 139, in the middle of its hymn of praise, throws in, verse 19, "Wilt thou not slay the wicked, O God?" as if it were surprising that such a simple remedy for human ills had not occurred to the Almighty. Worst of all, in "The Lord is my shepherd," Psalm 23, after the green pasture, the waters of comfort, the sure confidence in the valley of the shadow, we suddenly run across verse 5. "Thou shalt prepare a table for me against them that trouble me," or as Dr. Moffat translates it, "Thou art my host, spreading a feast for me while my enemies have to look on." The poet's enjoyment of his present prosperity would not be complete unless those horrid Joneses, who used to look down their noses at him, were watching it all and hating it. This may not be so diabolical as the passages I have quoted above, but the pettiness and vulgarity of it, especially in such surroundings, are hard to endure. One way of dealing with these terrible, or, dare we say, contemptible psalms, is simply to leave them alone. But unfortunately the bad parts will not come away clean. We need therefore by no means assume that the psalmists are deceived or lying when they assert that, as against their particular enemies at some particular moment, they are completely in the right. Their voices, while they say so, may grate harshly on our ear, and suggest to us that they are unamiable people. But that is another matter, and to be wronged does not commonly make people amiable. But of course the fatal confusion between being in the right and being righteous soon falls upon them. In Psalm 7, from which I have already quoted, we see the transition. In verses 3 to 5, the poet is merely in the right. By verse 8 he is saying, "Give sentence with me, O Lord, according to my righteousness and according to the innocency that is in me."